All right, welcome everybody. So we're here today to talk about finances. So this is the second time today I've publicly talked about finances. The first was this morning at an address I made to the Chamber of Commerce, and this is the same address I give year in and year out to their monthly breakfast session. So this year, I usually just at that session run down what's going on in the city generally and touch upon as many topics as I possibly can. This year I did something a little bit different. I focused on municipal finances, which made it, of course, perhaps the single most boring speech I've ever given in my life. And I hope nobody here says that's hard to do, but we live in times where money is tight. And that means that we've got to keep an eye on every nickel that comes in and every nickel that goes out. And we've been doing a good job with that under the leadership of Ari Sky and the partnership we have with the City Council. We've been able to manage our finances pretty well. The city now has the highest bond rating in its history, which is Wall Street's way of saying you guys are running your shop well. But that doesn't make it any easier. The reality is that we live in a period in which revenues are tight, property tax receipts are tight, even though there's still far too much pressure on taxpayers. Our commercial tax rate in particular is higher than it should be. Residential tax rate as well, but particularly our commercial tax rate, which has gone up and up in the last few years. So we don't want that to continue. But what it means is that as we make tough decisions to control our finances over the next few years, and as we must, we need to build consensus around them. And a consensus only comes with understanding and confidence that city government is doing exactly what taxpayers believe it should, and that is spending city money as we would our own money. And that is what taxpayers are entitled to, and that's what we do here. So along those lines, we want to do our dead level best to facilitate an understanding of how municipal finance works. And I confess that when I got into office, I had a long way to go to get my head around municipal finance. And so for those folks who are not working in city government, so those folks who don't have to deal with this stuff on a day-to-day basis, sometimes all of it sounds opaque. It's hard to know exactly what's going on. So we are announcing today the establishment of a mechanism that will help people understand where their tax dollars are going, and that is the New Bedford Open Checkbook, which is a searchable database of the city's accounts payable. In other words, through this, you can go on the city's website and see exactly how the city is spending its money. And that is really important, especially in a day and age where people understandably and justifiably are expecting a lot in the way of transparency as well as thoughtful fiscal management. We're doing a good job here, but it's not enough to say that. It's incumbent upon us to throw the doors open and say, take a look, so that everybody can have an understanding of how we're thinking about our city's future. Because the reality is that we spend a lot of our time thinking about finances in the city, not because it's exciting. Sorry, Ari, it's not. We do it because in order to achieve our goals, we have to spend our money well and be thoughtful about it. The goals including making our streets safe, making our schools better, raising the quality of life for neighborhoods, you name it. It doesn't happen if we don't have a good handle on the city's finances. So what Open Checkbook does, and we'll go through it in a second, is it, again, allows people to go on the city's website and to take a good look at where the money's going and to raise questions about it. That's something that that people will be able to do and provide feedback through all the usual means, calling the mayor's office, calling the CFO, calling the councilors, whatever. At least it gives us an opportunity to get for residents to gain a better understanding of what's going on, but also for us in city government to get the benefit of people's feedback. So there are lots of people to thank for this. I think it's a significant achievement for the city. We're not the first city to do it, but it's really it reemphasizes the values we have here about constant improvement in city government and making making city government more transparent so that people have more confidence in government. There are lots of people to thank. First of all, let me just thank the city's team. Ari this is another achievement for the CFO's office. In Ari's relatively short time in his position, he's been able to really move the needle in the way that the city manages taxpayer funds. We're doing it so much more efficiently now and with a higher degree of transparency than ever before in the city's history, and that's something we're proud of, and Ari has been at the tip of the spear of that effort. I want to thank Maria Pina Rocha and the team down at MIS for making this happen. Now this is, so we're all familiar with the work that our city crews do, DPI in particular, in accomplishing tasks that many municipalities outsource, whether it's plowing snow or doing masonry or building things. We do a lot in-house because we have the skills and the resourcefulness and the initiative. This is sort of, this task here, in a way, was a great example of that. MIS took on, through Maria's leadership, the construction of this portal, the Open Checkbook database and web-based platform. We tried to bid this out, and it came back too expensive. And so Maria rolled up, and her team rolled up their sleeves and said, we're going to get this done. So she and John Costa and everybody else downstairs at MIS did a great job in pulling that together, employing their expertise, programming it from scratch from the start. And so now we have really a way of doing all this without burdening taxpayers. And I also want to thank Bob Ekstrom, our city auditor. The rubber hits the road with the auditor's office, and Bob has, and again, in an even shorter period of time in his position, has been able to upgrade the capacity of that office and get more done. And the auditor's function should be the least noticed position in city government. And when you notice what the auditor is doing, there's something wrong. I notice what's going on because his team's working really hard and thoughtfully in making things better in the back office. And last, I just want to thank the partnership with the City Council, in particular City Councilor Steve Martins, for spearheading this effort. Steve has been talking about Open Checkbook for a while now, and Steve is an ideas guy. Steve wanted to see this happen. It makes all the sense in the world for something like this to happen, and he raised the idea with Ari, and they started working on it, and that's the way things should work between the council and the administration. And so, Steve, thank you for taking a great idea and running with it, because in the long run, city government's going to benefit, and ultimately the citizens of our city will benefit in ways that might not be discernible on a day-to-day basis, but will certainly be there. So with all that, let me call up Steve to talk a little bit about the origin of the idea and the work that he did. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor said, the council meets many hours throughout the week, and like the mayor said, we're always full of ideas, and those ideas get sent to committees to explore and have discussions. This was one of those ideas that we had moved forward, and many discussions with Ari, the auditor's office, MIS, and we're extremely pleased that the administration also was on board with the council, and then everyone just got to work. Even though we are full of ideas, we're extremely appreciative of our city employees, MIS. They really made this approach come alive, and a lot of work was, from my understanding, went behind this to make this possible. And just like the mayor's office and every city employee here, the city council, we have a very deep connection with our constituents, and our constituents are very vocal. They have questions about the process, about their government, and rightfully so. And I strongly believe that this tool will deepen that connection with the residents of the city of New Bedford, especially through our financial process and our budget process as well, whether it be transfers on our council agenda, whether it be through the budget process where our constituents have many questions about why taxpayers' money are being spent different ways. So this gives them this tool in addition to us being connected with them and trying to explain exactly how their tax dollars are being spent. Now they're just one click away of seeing that exactly. And as the mayor said, it's easy for us to explain and get into this boring process about how money is being spent. But overall, our constituency really doesn't have all the time in the world to listen to that process. And they just want an answer. And then, as the mayor says, in addition to that answer, you know, they want to keep taxes low. They want to just make sure they're not keep digging into their pockets and so on. So I think that seeing a visual checkbook like this, and as the mayor said again, that it's nothing new. Other cities and towns are using this. Our state agency is using this as well under the treasurer's office. It just gives them a better tool to see exactly how their tax dollars are being spent. And to us, I mean, this is the 21st century, and we should have this tool in the city of New Bedford. It's all about open government and transparency. It's something that the administration strongly believes. It's something that the council not only believes, but also supports. Anything that enhances our jobs to better explain to our constituency how their government works, we certainly support. And there's lots of other tools and lots of other ideas that the council has moving New Bedford, just like the mayor, into the 21st century. And we were just not too long ago, as the mayor was saying, about that we held a press conference about snow removal process and talking about the 21st century. So our city employees do a wonderful job. We're very fortunate that not only is this tool now accessible to our constituents, but it also came at a very, very, very low cost. So it didn't cost taxpayers really nearly any money to put this online, which I know that Ari will explain. So we always felt fortunate that our city employees are very talented, and this is just another way of showing that we have great city employees in New Bedford. So thank you.
Good. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, next up, I would ask Ari to come up and say a few words about how this ties into a lot of the other financial and operational reforms that have happened or are underway in the city. Ari.
So the Open Checkbook is a tool. It's a very useful tool. For some time now, we've actually been posting online quarterly reports of expenditures for the city and for all the funds, something that both councilors can access as well as members of the public. The value of Open Checkbook is that it allows you to drill down a little bit and look at expenditures by type and see what they who the vendors were and so forth, and how much was paid out to whatever function and out of different departments. When I first started here several years ago, maybe the first 2 weeks in, I think Councilor Martins approached me about this. And at the time, we didn't really have the technical capability to do it. The reason being that we were converting to our new financial system, Munis. We only had half of the city on Munis at that point. The schools hadn't converted yet. I said to Councilor Martins at the time, can we wait to get schools on board? He said, sure. And we did that, and then we started to move forward. So we looked at the possibility of a hosted site, and there are some very nice, fancy hosted sites out there that are run by outside vendors. We checked with our own financial services vendor with Munis to see how that would cost, and the cost was rather significant, tens of thousands of dollars a year for a hosted site. So Maria approached me and said, I think I can do this. And I said, okay, give it a try. And she started programming and putting it together. And for the past year or so, we've been building it and refining it and cleaning up the data. A lot of credit also goes to Bob Ekstrom in his office and the departments out there. We asked them we've given them fairly strict guidance at this point in terms of how they enter their data and what it looks like, so it's all uniform and understandable. And that would not have been the case without a strong and effective auditor's office. So it's really the team of professionals that got it together and made it happen, and we're really very pleased to be able to unveil this today.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ari. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria to give everybody a tutorial how this works, and I think this will be particularly useful for those watching on cable TV so they can see how to access it. Do you want to do it from there? Do you want to do it from here, Maria? What do you?
We can do it from here so we don't have
Okay, okay, all right, so why don't we, why don't you come on up? And again, I just want to echo what's been said before about the skill that Maria brought to the task and her team brought to the task, because this is not, hasn't been because of the Munis conversion, because of a number of limitations in the data, an easy task, and her team pulled it off, and I think it's great. So Maria, without any further ado, come on up.
So the site, when you go into the site, you're going to notice that there's a little tiny drop down, which will give you the ability to select your quarters. Right now, we have live the first quarter of the fiscal year 2016. Underneath this section here, we have 4 boxes that gives you the ability to click on the different ways you can search our database. You can search by fund, by expenditure type, by vendor, and by department. If you was to click on any of these, and for an example, John, if you can click on search by department, you will see that down below, you will get the total expenditures for quarter 1. You'll get the total number of invoices for quarter 1. And as you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that it is an alphabetical order listing by department and the total expenditures that that department hit against the first quarter. If we was to click on one of these numbers, the dollar expenditure amount, it'll further drill you down into the system where it would give you a list of all the funds that right now we clicked on facilities and fleet management, for an example, and they have 5 different funds that they expense from. And then they have the total dollar amount spent for each particular fund. If we click on, for example, the general fund, and you click on the dollar amount, and it's underlined, so you'll know anything underlined is a clickable link, you'll be able to now get a list of invoices. And the invoices are organized by department, in alphabetical order by vendor, and then it gives you the details of the invoice on this side, which it gives you the invoice date, the invoice number, the fund that was expensed, the expenditure type, and the account that it expensed out of, with the grand total of that particular, for that particular invoice. You can print the page if you want to print the page. You can go to the back, and it'll bring you back one screen. So you can toggle back to the list of funds for this department. You can go back further and go back to the home page again. And every time, and then if you click on the vendor, and I'll only go through just one more, vendor will be a list of every single vendor that the city uses in alphabetical order, how much money was paid to that vendor during this quarter. If you click on the amount of expenditures for that particular vendor, it'll give you a list of invoices for that particular vendor and what department actually hit that vendor. And then you go back, and then you go back to the main screen. Every time a quarter is published, you will be able to get it right from this select to drop down here. You'll be able to find all the quarters, and then we'll have a grand total year-to-date one that you can do in one searchable. You can do it by year-to-date as well. Right now, we only got quarter 1, and we'll keep enhancing and adding things as we go along and when they're ready. And that's it.
All right, any questions, guys?
Yes, it is live right now at www.newbedford-ma.gov/Open Checkbook. Yes, and right now it's sitting, if you go to city offices from the main website and you go to auditor's office, you'll be able to click on auditor's office, and then you'll see right on the ribbon, there's a link to Open Checkbook, and it'll bring you right to the Open Checkbook. Any other questions? Okay.
All right,